Hi Bowl Bakers! 3-ingredient flatbread was one of my biggest videos of 2018, but one of the most common questions I got asked was, can you make it with whole wheat flour? Well, I've got a fantastic whole wheat tortilla recipe for you right now. It is just a few ingredients and you don't need any yeast to make it. As always, the recipe can be found on biggerbolderbaking.com, and make sure you check out my website because I've got loads of recipes over there. Okay, let's get started in a nice big bowl. So now you can make this dough using a stand mixer, however you don't need to. It's really easy to make it by hand. Into my large bowl, I'm going to start out with my whole wheat flour. So as you can see, I used a finely ground flour, but you can use something a little bit coarser. Whole wheat flour is really great to add into your diet. It is full of nutrients and fiber. Now, because I don't use whole wheat flour all that often, I keep it in my fridge, and that's a really great way to keep it fresh in your fridge or even in your freezer. So maybe if you use it every few weeks or so, it will stay nice and fresh for much longer. So next I'm going to add in all-purpose flour. Now I'll tell you the reason I do this. I never use 100% whole wheat flour because it actually can be really heavy and difficult to work with. What I do is cut it with a little bit of white flour. So generally I do around maybe 2/3 whole wheat and then 1/3 all-purpose, and it just makes for a much better dough and just easier to handle. It might seem like I'm telling you a lot of flour facts, but honestly, if you make breads and doughs and things like that, you need to know all this information because it just makes your life so much easier. Okay, now next into this, we're going to add in some salt. So next up is our leavening agent. It is baking powder. Now, just like I said earlier, you don't need yeast to make this dough. It is super easy. And without using yeast, it actually is a much quicker dough to make. So in you go. And then with a spatula, just mix all these ingredients together to make sure that it's well combined. So it's becoming more and more prevalent that people are changing the flours up in their diet, and lots of people now are using almond flour. Now you cannot unfortunately use almond flour in this recipe. However, Olivia has created a really fantastic flatbread using almond flour on my website, so make sure you check that out. So our next ingredient makes the tortilla soft and flaky, and it is a vegetable oil. You can also use maybe coconut oil, sunflower oil, and olive oil, but just note it is a little bit stronger in flavor. Lovely. And then just get your spatula and mix this in until it kind of gets a little bit crumbly. To be honest with you, what I like to do when making bread is get stuck in with my hands and just rub it in, just similar to the way you would rub in butter to flour. And you just crumble it in to make sure it gets all the way throughout your flour. So as you can see, this looks like coarse breadcrumbs. This is perfect. So now our next ingredient is our water that brings it all together. Now let me tell you something about this. When making any kind of a bread dough, you want to make sure that you add in maybe 3/4 of your water. Don't add it all in at once, and I'll tell you why. Once it's in there, you can't take it out. And there's nothing worse than a really soggy dough. What you want is for this dough just to come together. You might not need all the water, or maybe you'll need a little bit more water. Everybody's dough is different. So start out with 3/4 of the amount of water and then go from there. I know this seems like a lot of information for making breads. I'm kind of a bread nerd, but to be honest with you, like, it makes all the difference. So now this is where I like to get stuck in with my hand, because with your hand, you can tell exactly the texture of your dough. If you need a little bit more water, if you maybe it's a little bit wet, it's just so much easier to tell by using your hand rather than using a wooden spoon. So check this out. I can see that my dough does need that bit of extra water. So I'm going to add the rest of it in and bring my dough together until it forms a ball. So if you use all your water and are worried, Gemma, what do? I used up all my water. Add in a little bit more. I'm going to tell you what to look for. So what you're looking for is a ball of dough and a clean bowl. If you have these two things, you're golden. So there's my dough. I already know by the feel of it, it's going to be a good dough. Now what you want to do is just cut it up into 10 different pieces because it's going to make 10 tortillas. Once they're cut up on the counter, just roll them into a little ball. Sometimes also you can find it's actually easier to do in your hand. Working in a bakery, I used to have to do hundreds of these little rolls a day at like 3 in the morning, maybe like 500-600. So I got pretty good at it. And after all that time of training, I can actually do 2 at the one time. Let's see if I can. Oh yeah, boop. So now here's what you want to do. Get a nice clean tea towel, lay it over your dough, seal them in there, and make them nice and snug. You don't want your dough to form a skin, and by covering it with a nice clean tea towel, that won't happen. Also, now what we're going to do is let these rest for around 15 to 20 minutes. This resting period makes them so much easier to roll, so just let them hang out minimum 15 minutes. So it's been a few minutes, my dough is lovely and relaxed, so now we can roll them out. So just flour your surface lightly, this will make it much easier to roll. And then with a rolling pin, we're going to roll these out to around 8 inches by 8 inches. Now you don't want to go too much bigger than that, and I'll tell you why. They'll end up being really crisp, and you want them to be nice soft tortillas. So 8 by 8 inches is kind of like the sweet spot that I found. So now believe me when I tell you, when I first started out as a pastry chef, when I tried to make pizza, tortillas, anything that was supposed to be round, it never turned out round. It was always these really odd shapes. But over the years, I've gotten a lot of practice, and I find that if you turn your dough as you're rolling, you're more than likely to get that rounder shape. And if you don't, whatever, it's still going to taste good. So this is looking good and surprisingly round, which is awesome. So I get asked a lot, what is a piece of kitchen equipment I couldn't live without? And the answer is a ruler, and I'll tell you why. Baking is about precision. You need to have the same size tin as I do. You need your tortilla to be the same size as mine. You need your pizza to be the same size. All of these things, it's really important to have an inexpensive ruler to hand in your kitchen. And I can tell that this is 8 by 8 inches. So great, this guy is ready to be cooked off. So to cook them off, you need a nice large frying pan. Non-stick is preferable. So I have this over a medium-low heat. Now, while you're rolling out your tortillas, let your pan heat up, get it to a good kind of moderate temperature, not smoking, and then that'll be good to cook off your tortillas. And you'll see that I don't use butter or oil to cook off the tortillas. It doesn't need it. So not only is this a fast dough to make and that you don't need a machine to make it, they also cook around 2 minutes on each side, so they're really quick. And as you can see, they're already starting to bubble. Gorgeous. So as your tortilla is cooking off, be super productive and roll out your next dough. So at around the 2-minute mark, have a little look, and if he's nice and toasty on the other side, give him a flip over. So this is looking good and bubbly on the other side. Now I'm just going to lay it on a plate with a clean napkin and then cover it over. So the reason that I want to cover it over in a tea towel is because it kind of steams it and keeps the bread nice and soft. So make sure you do that step. Now my pan is ready to go again. I've got another tortilla, so just keep on cooking them off. So I'm very happy to say that I've actually collaborated with the Wheat Foods Council, and I've made this recipe and many more for them. I've made savory and sweet, so check them out on my website. I've got like a mushroom and thyme galette, we've got a breakfast muffin, the tortillas, lots of really great recipes there. You can see when they're cooking, these lovely big bubbles form. That's exactly what you want from your tortilla. That means that they're nice and flaky. If you cook and roll as you go, you'll make these in no time. So the nutritional value for these tortillas are on my website. They're 136 calories each, which is fantastic when you're thinking about part of your lunch or even a snack in the afternoon. Okay, another one looking good. I'm going to put him under my tea towel and then pop on another one. So cook it on this side for 2 minutes. And once it's looking good, flip it over. And there you have it. That's our last tortilla. So you can do anything you want with your tortilla. You can use it as a wrap for a sandwich. You can make it into a burrito, or do what I like to do and make it into a quesadilla. Considering that carbs and cheese are two of my main food groups, I can't wait to try this. I love these tortillas because with a little bit of oil in them, it makes them kind of flaky and bubbly. So you have all these lovely little air pockets all the way throughout your tortilla. Without a doubt, this is a great way to inject a little bit of whole wheat into your diet. And cheese. As always, this recipe can be found on my website, and make sure you check it out because there's loads of videos over there that you might not have even seen. I'll see you back here really soon for more bigger, bolder baking. So here's the fun part. You can do anything you want with your tortilla. You can make it into a wrap or a burrito. That is a wrap. Oh man, I love tortillas. I love cheese. Tortillas and cheese.